So welcome. Hello, my name is Tiffany Stone from Shakti Shiva Academy, and I'm welcoming all of you, everyone's still joining in and dropping into this call, where we're having the power and purpose of being a woman with Rianne van der Linde and Claire Remore. So thank you all for joining us today. It's always an interesting thing to host an international event across a variety of different time zones and countries. And as it is, we've got me sitting in South Africa, Claire sitting in the Bay Area in California, and Rianne sitting in the Canary Islands in Spain at the moment. So we really are a diversified group of women. We've had up to now, I think, just over 680 women registering for this event. So it's really a powerful group that has come together. So I will hand over in a moment to Rianne and Claire to really take us through the content of this webinar for today, but it's just a brief introduction from us. I'm sure it's, well, for myself. As I mentioned, Shakti Shiva Academy, which is an online academy where we host, which was originally founded by a wonderful and powerful woman, Shakti Milan. Some of you may have encountered her or counted her work. She wrote a really good book, Sexual Awakening for Women, which is a powerful workbook which takes women through connecting their bodies and various exercises of reconnecting to their sexual essence. And over time, after working with thousands of women over many years, she eventually sort of went more online and created an online academy, and we've been working with her ever since, offering a variety of courses, in-person retreats, which is why actually Rianne's sitting in the Canary Islands at the moment. They've just completed a freedom and nervous system retreat and rewiring the body and their system. And so my role has been particularly really online sort of program manager, student support, kind of business of business. And in that, unfortunately, Shakti left her body in 2017 after of her own sort of journey with cancer. And as such, we've sort of come together and still continue to bring this work forward into the world, because it's just from our own experiences as students, and for all of us, so experiencing all the experiences of students that have journeyed through this work together, it was definitely something that we wanted to continue because it has got such incredible value. So for now, I'm going to hand over through to Rianne and Claire. Again, welcome. There is a workbook that goes along with this webinar. I have put a link in the chat box for those of you who can access the chat. It has also gone out via email. It's not necessarily an absolute follow along for this call, so you don't need to worry about getting into it and downloading and writing. We kind of separate, but it's definitely something that after the call you can spend some time going through, working through, and reflecting on some of the questions. So that is there for you. It would be lovely to see, we've got obviously a large group of women, to sort of hear where some of you are from. So you're welcome to, in the chat, kind of send a little hello, what country you are in, where you're calling from, and so we can get a sense of who we all here and joining us here together. And in the meantime, I'm going to hand over through to Rianne. Thank you.
Here on this call today, then it means that you are listening, and you can hear the call of she, who is ready to birth herself in the world, and she's ready to birth herself whether we are or not. And so the opportunity that we have here online today is to really unpack some of what it means to be a woman on the planet right now. What is our purpose? Where is our power, and why do we seem to be so afraid of it, so afraid to own it? And what does being mean? And is that what the world is really longing for? So before we move into the conversational piece, I'd really love to introduce Claire, who is my co-conspirator in this conversation. So Claire speaks of how at a very young age she cut herself off from the feminine, from her feminine essence, in favor of developing mastery of the masculine qualities, which in her perception would give her more power and agency and efficiency in the world. her feeling was that the feminine was weak. I'm sure many of you can relate to that. And Claire is a woman who has been on a multi-decade journey of reclaiming and embodying her connection to the feminine. And she was one of the very lucky women who got to meet Shakti Milan about a decade ago in 2010, when Shakti was traveling in the States. And Shakti really empowered Claire in ways that Claire couldn't have imagined, to embody, re-embody and reconnect to her feminine essence. And now, almost a decade later, Claire is a skillful guide for individuals, a counselor. Her interest is in tantric spirituality. She uses conscious dance as a modality, helping clients, couples and individuals, assisting them with their relationships to identity and to gender. So Claire was a senior student of Shakti's from 2012 to 2017, and actually was the woman who motivated and inspired and encouraged Shakti, actually insisted that Shakti took this work online. There was a body of work that Shakti had on sexual shadow integration, and Claire really insisted that she take the work online, and then that led into Sexual Awakening for Women work. So really great gratitude for you, Claire, for that technology piece, which I know Shakti had huge resistance to. And both Claire and I participated in the original totality therapy training that Shakti offered, and it really was a game-changing, life-altering, pivotal piece for both of us. And we have been collaborating, and Claire has been collaborating and facilitating with the Shakti Shiva Academy ever since. So I'm really delighted to be on this call with you this evening, Claire.
Yay, thank you, Rianne. Thank you so much. And now let me introduce you. So this is Rianne Vanderlyn, who happens to be in the Canary Islands right now in a very warm climate, unlike others of us. And I met Rianne through doing the work with Shakti. And for those of you who never came across Shakti or haven't yet, this is a photo of her. And we are celebrating the 2nd anniversary of her passing this week, actually. And so it's a very auspicious moment, very sweet time. And I definitely feel her here. And I know that Rianne worked closely with Shakti all those years, and Rianne is an avid alchemist. She's an energy expert. She's such a stand for the feminine and for women, and has a robust energy, really moving through life with attunement to what's happening in the present moment, and working with the cycles of life and death and breath and no breath, and being a role model for what it's like to tune into the body and listen closely and birth a new reality, really coming from a place of listening. And one thing I appreciate deeply about Rianne is her capacity to guide and to stabilize a container. And Rianne is a phenomenal organizer and has been working closely with other healers, not just Shakti, including the main facilitator on the retreat in the Canary Islands. So Rianne is an exquisite human being, a phenomenal woman, and what an honor to be here with you, Rianne. And now I turn it over to you to take us on a meditative journey that is one of your exquisite gifts. Help us all land and arrive together in this field of sisterhood and of womanhood, and to really drop into our bodies before we acknowledge the content and move forward in our conversation. So Rianne, I turn it over to you.
Thanks, Claire. So the invitation now is to just take a moment to really drop in together into the field, appreciating that there's 60 plus women on the call right now, and many more who will be receiving the recording, to just start feeling ourselves and each other. So you are invited to settle into your seat, to find a really comfortable position, to ease into your sitting bones, to really rest deeply into the seat of your being. I invite you to close your eyes, place yourself in a way where your spine is flexible and straight and is able to move gently and subtly as we drop deeper and deeper into our beautiful bodies of love. So let's just take a deep breath together and then just shake that breath out. Using the let go to just shake out any tension that's present in our bodies. Pull your shoulders up towards your ears and just let them drop down. Breathing out the accumulated tension that's sitting in the tissue of your body. So let's just focus on our breath. Bring our attention to the breath in a focused way, and also in a really relaxed and loose understanding that if we open our mouths wide and we relax our jaws and our throats, that the breath wants to pour into us. Now, if we open and make space for this pouring in of life, of prana, of energy, of aliveness, that it just wants to fill us up. And the more that we're able to relax deeply into the breath, using our breath, using the sounds that want to fall out of our bodies, and using the subtle movements that our bodies want to make, using breath, sound, and movement as our keys to create more space in our bodies. Let's just take a few deep in-breaths together, taking in more aliveness on every in-breath and expansion, expanding into our capacity for sensation in our bodies, resting and relaxing into the aliveness that wants to enter and penetrate us. And then with every out-breath, the deeper letting go, the deeper relaxation. Recognizing on the out-breath the opportunity to die and to let go and to empty out to all the lines that we've drawn around ourselves, all the boundaries, all the lines we've drawn to know who we are. Letting that solidity just find some porousness on the edges. And using the breath, allowing it to pour in and out through our bodies, turning it like a wheel. So what are the sounds and the movements that your body wants to make as it settles into deeper and deeper relaxation? Opening, expanding, letting go. Can you make sure that your jaw is relaxed and your mouth open? Can you feel your throat opening? As the relaxation drops down, down and in, deep, deep down and in, right into the seat of our being, into our pelvic bowl, into the pit of our belly, filling us up, filling up our genitals with relaxation, filling up our pelvic bowl with relaxation, really finding the delight and pleasure in your body right now, using your breath, using your sounds, and using your movements, subtle movements. Noticing how the body naturally opens and expands on the in-breath. The spine arches and opens. And on the out-breath, body curves, the spine curves, and the breath just falls out of the body. It's a letting go, an opportunity to just let go. So in this deepening relaxation, in the opening down into the pelvic bowl, you may feel your sexual energy gently waking, being aroused. And it's subtle. It's slow. It flows. It's fluid and it's languid and it wants to move up, undulating movements through your round woman's body. Can you feel in your body how that wants to move? The energy might want to move through your belly and up through the diaphragm. Maybe even up through your throat and out through the crown of your head. It's a gentle, gentle, slow movement, nothing to force. Nowhere to go. Doesn't look like this and it doesn't look like that. It's just a movement in your beautiful body now. So following the curve of the in-breath as it curves into the out-breath, following the curve of the out-breath as it becomes the in-breath. There's a moment there that if we just drop into it, there's a portal to great well-being, to great pleasure, to aliveness, to waking up to what we really are. So let's just breathe together for a couple of minutes more, feeling the space with every breath that is opening in our bodies, in our beings. Just dropping in the question for contemplation. How alive are you willing to be? How much bliss are you willing to birth through your body? How much bliss are you willing to stand? Just noticing how the breath takes us deeper and deeper into the ground of our own beings, into the earth, into matter, into the tissue of our own bodies, and into the arms of the mother. Tender being with everything exactly as it is. So let's just take 2 more really deep breaths together. And then really slowly, softly, and gently, in your own time, allow your person to return to this time and space that we have together now. More ease and flow, and an open expansion, so that we can all receive each other's gifts.
Thank you, Rianne, for that deep dive into bliss. And really, that's an exquisite demonstration of the power and the potency of the feminine. Because it's all about dropping deeply, moving into the body, and kind of falling into surrender. And these are not necessarily intuitive ways of being, especially not in patriarchy. And we as women have that gravity of a system that is truly oppressive to everyone. This really pushing us out of our body and out of our pleasure and out of our desire and out of our bliss. And everyone suffers, not just women or females. And so thank you for bringing us back to center. Yeah.
It's really beautiful to go there and feel the possibility of that. And it feels like it was just a sip and a taste of where our women's bodies have the capacity to really take us if we just surrender to our vulnerability and recognize that it's actually there that our greatest power lies.
Yeah. Now, as we enter into the conversation that we've gathered together for, there's 4 pillars that Rianne and I are hoping to journey with you all into. And those 4 pillars are about power and purpose and being and woman. So we'll start together with power, because clearly power from a feminine place is a very different experience than from a masculine place. And I like to presence that every human being has feminine, masculine, or alpha and omega, whatever you'd like to refer to those energy polarities as. Every human being has those essences inside. And power from the feminine standpoint is really this creative power. It's creative and it's movement and it thrives from inspiration. And if we look at the word inspire or inspiration, it has at its root spire, which means breath. And if we go a level deeper, we have the root of fire. So it's the breath of fire that's at the core of inspiration. And when we practice moving that energy through our bodies, then we're really allowing the inspiration of this polarity known as the feminine to move through and to create worlds, to create realities, to create experiences, and to create bliss, or even to create sorrow and suffering. Creation is creation. However, from my standpoint, I move towards bliss, I move towards pleasure as a stance in my life. And I think we've all had enough suffering. We all know how to do that really well. So desire is the power that ignites our world, and desire certainly creates. And the word Shakti, it's a Sanskrit word that translates as creative power. And it's this power that manifests the planets, it moves the oceans, it spins the galaxies, and it moves through us in our lives. It's very, very potent. So our awakened sexual energy is a universal force of creation. At minimum, its power lies in we can create life with this sexual energy. But with it, we can also create realities, experiences, movements of energy. The cyclical movement of the energy generates creativity. And truly the time has come for us as women, as human beings, to take a radical responsibility for what we are creating, because that's where power resides, is in taking responsibility for what's showing up around us. Though we might be under an illusion or a story or a thought form that another entity outside of us is to blame for what we're experiencing. And it can certainly seem that way. When we dive in deeply, we are creating. We are always creating what's happening. And we can create differently. And that's really the power of the feminine when we contemplate the responsibility there. And contemplate this for a moment. What does your sexual power want to do in the world? What has it been doing in the world so far? What have you learned about sexual energy, and who did you learn it from? What have you learned about sexuality, being a sexual being, and who did you learn it from? There's no right or wrong answer with this, and there's no good or bad. There's only what is. And it's helpful to revisit this question because, again, we can always shift the creation. We can shift the point of view and the focus and create something new. And the start of creating something new comes from being in touch with what we want. So now we have our first exercise for you. And if you happen to have pen and paper nearby, that would be useful. Or you can type on your phone, or you can contemplate in your mind. But we have a question for you to reflect on. And the question is also in your workbook. Here it is. What do I really, really, really want? So let that settle in. Going to the heart of desire, breaking through all the layers, the heart of the heart of the heart. What do I really, 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 really want? So we'll give you about 2 minutes right now to free write or to think or type it into your phone or on your computer. Give yourself permission, just like we were softening and surrendering in this meditation just now, dropping into the body where desire lives. Let the inspiration come up and through and reveal to you, what do you really, 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 really want? And notice if you're using your mind to access that answer. See if you can drop out of the mind and into the body. What do you really, 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 really want? And even think about what has been scary to want. What has been intimidating to give yourself permission to want. And take about another 30 seconds to access what do I really, 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 really want. And we'd love to open the floor to some shares for anyone who would like to share. A couple ways we can do that. Feel free to type into the chat if you feel a little shy and don't necessarily want to come live. You can type into the chat. And the way to access that is to scroll to the bottom of your frame and you'll see the little icon for chat. And so you can type there. And if there's a couple of people who would like to share live, you can go over to participants on that same bottom part of your screen and raise your hand. And we'll do a couple minutes of sharing before we move forward. So if there's anyone who'd like to share. Yeah, Fran says to inspire freedom. Lisa, let's see if I can unmute. Where are you, Lisa?
I've unmuted her. Lisa, you can speak.
Okay, I can't see you guys anymore, but so there we go. Let's see if I can. There we go. So to give birth to the embodied sense of being connected to one another, and where that comes from is I've felt it before. It's like when my son was born. It's an incredible feeling. It's like love coming out of every part of you, and it flows. It's not from me, but it's like it flows through me. And I felt it a couple other times, and it's not in your head at all. It's like it's full on through your body. It's a beautiful feeling. And when I've had that experience with people I'm close to, it's they feel it. It's like this sense of being so safe and so seen and so valued. And I really want to be able to give that.
Yes. Yes. And that connection and that connecting and that creating that web of love is really what the feminine essence in all of us is capable of and deeply desires. And where we get to bring that online, that starts to show up in life.
Yeah.
It's needed right now.
Yeah.
At this time on this planet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's see. Looks like Shariah.
Hi. I've just unmuted myself. I hope that's
Perfect.
okay.
Yeah, we see you and hear you.
Okay. I want to be free to be the truth of who I am, to allow myself that freedom. And knowing that nobody else is keeping me caged except myself. And I want to love myself completely. And I want to share unconditional love, intimacy, and conscious sexuality with another. Those are my desires.
May they be so. This is beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yay. Yum. We have time for one more share if there's anyone else who'd like to share live or to share. We have so many great shares on the chat. I hope you're getting to scroll through and see them. So good. And feel free to keep sharing in the chat and to write whatever's alive for you. Yay. So now we'll shift on into purpose. And purpose is a very interesting concept because it to me anyway, feels very masculine or yang, very directed. And however, when we can peel the layers back and really deep dive, fully surrender into this inquiry about purpose as being female-bodied, as being woman, and unlocking that higher purpose in being yourself, like Soraya was sharing, like to be bold and bodacious in fully allowing who we are to come through. Well, that is a purpose worthy of a lifetime. And think about what your personal dreams are. And a lot of these are showing up as our desires. Our dreams for the planet, our dreams for ourselves, our dreams for our loved ones, our dreams for how we participate and show up. And the more permission I give myself to fully inhabit my purpose, my reason for being, in truth, it liberates you to also have more permission and more boldness and more vitality to step into your aliveness and full expression. And when we realize that the more magnificent I allow myself to be, the more permission for amazingness I give myself, then it frees you up for the same. And the more permission and more magnificence you give yourself, it frees me up. And so we often think that we're alone in our little worlds and we're not connected to other people and there's no impact that we have, but actually we're constantly in a web. We're eternally in a web of connection and impact and influence. And so when one of us wakes up to aliveness, to bliss, to our purpose, to our pleasure, it ripples out and frees up more of us to wake up. So in essence, we're in this together. We really are in this together. And that's exciting when we see the more I open up space in myself, the more I surrender to what is, the more I say yes to what I desire, then it really gives you energy and freedom and permission to do the same and vice versa. So that's something that I love about this deeper purpose of being woman, of being connected, of being in a sisterhood of womanhood, of like Lisa was sharing, being really feeling that connection to one another and to the whole. And the more we say yes to this, then the more this becomes a reality. And it's really worth presencing. It's really worth reminding ourselves, like, I am, may you be, and you are, may I be. And that flow, that exchange is happening. And it's very exquisite. Like, what a pleasurable, special, precious opportunity we have to allow this in our lives. And so I loved a question that Rianne asked in the meditation for your contemplation. How much bliss can you stand? Think about, as you move through your life, where do you recoil from bliss, from pleasure, from having what you most desire, what you most want? Where is it just too scary and you pull away from it? And where do you give yourself? Where do you move towards it? Where do you say yes? And noticing that interplay between opening and closing to bliss, and define bliss however is true for you. But notice, how much bliss can you stand? How much bliss historically have you been able to stand? And are you ready to open, to expand, to sense and feel in a bigger capacity to allow more of that bliss in? And
I'd like to jump in there.
I was just about to turn it over to you. Yes.
And take that question even a step deeper and a step further, and to drop in my understanding that perhaps our purpose as being born in this incarnation, as incarnating here on the planet now in women's bodies, is actually a pleasure purpose. That actually what the world is longing for is for us to fully step into that, step into the power of our pleasure and our purpose. And it's quite scary, because when the power of the feminine, when the power of that creative force really does move through these bodies, and I know that most of you have tasted this, and I know that most of you long to live more fully into this. But when we really come to feel some of the beautiful, what really touched me in the chat feed was that need to feel safe to surrender, that desire to open fully, to be happy in the body. What does it mean to rest deeply into our own bodies when most of us have ejected? Really, it's not a pathology. It doesn't make you anything. There's nothing wrong with you. Most of us have, it's been too terrifying to inhabit the flesh and the tissue of our own bodies. The intensity has been overwhelming, and in order to keep ourselves intact and to function efficiently in the world, we've had to really shut a lot down. And it feels to me like the invitation right now on the planet is to start really taking responsibility as women for that. Like, it's no longer an option to be the victims, to blame patriarchy, to blame men, to want somebody to save us. We have to take responsibility for what's arising in our realities. And we have to, somebody said it, I forget who, I think it was you, Shariah, we have to keep falling more and more and more deeply in love with ourselves. Because it's only from that place, when we take our own brokenness, our own grief, our own loss, our own pleasure, and we hold it like a small infant that never got the parenting. It was never modeled to love, care, and nurture itself whilst feeling difficult feelings. We are the ones who have to do that, firstly for ourselves. And to me, that really feels like acknowledging the presence of the masculine and the feminine that are equally available to all beings, no matter what the gender of our bodies, or how we identify, or how we express. And when they start to dance together, when they come online and they softly start developing relationship with each other. Now I would say, and I'm guessing now, but that most of the women who signed up for this call are here because you have some mastery of the masculine, probably a lot of mastery in the masculine. You're probably pretty darn deficient in the world, in your life. You can compete in the corporate playing field, on the global playing field. You can be hard-assed and bad-assed and all of those things. You earn your own money, you're raising your children, you're playing men's roles, women's roles, human roles. You're playing all of them. And yet there's a deep longing in all of us, particularly when we've come along that path of the masculine. It's like there's nowhere else to go. We're so fully developed into that one quadrant that there isn't anywhere to go except for the feminine to come online, to consume us, to devour us, to swallow us, to take us, to insist on devouring us. And I know in my own experience that was really very, very scary, because it was messy and it was unpredictable, and it did render me incapable for a period of time of managing my life in the way that I had previously done. And let's face it, it's scary. It's scary when month end comes and we've got a lifestyle that we're trying to perpetuate, and things have to be done, and time, and there isn't time and space for us. And so I was just really feeling, what would it mean for us as a collective to take responsibility as women, individually and together, and say, right, it's enough. We are the ones who have the power. We accept that we are the ones who have the power, and that actually the men in our lives are waiting in the wings. They are possibly waiting in the wings for you to land in the fullness of your own being and to say, this is what I want. This is how our family works. This is what's important. This is what we prioritize. We drop efficiency. First, it's relatedness, connectedness. That was pointed to. Efficiency comes second. We all know efficiency. What if we are the ones with the power to say, this is how it has to be. It cannot go on in the way that it is. I listened to something today, and the suggestion was that looking at the world around you and modeling your life on what you're seeing is probably a very bad idea. Because what we're seeing around us is actually a psychosis most of the time. You know, it's madness. The boxes that we're trying to climb into and the twists and turns we're making away from being grounded in our own beings. It's a kind of a madness, so that we can have the luxuries and the things that we feel we need, when actually most of us deeply, deeply know that it's the simple, simple things that really make a life worth living, create meaning, create connection, create safety, create space for newness to birth. So that was I hadn't intended to speak so much, but it just felt important to really, because in my work, and I've had such privilege to thread in and out of so many processes with men and women, but particularly with women. And you know, so often we think our journey is really personal, and of course it is. It's an incredibly personal journey. And then it's also incredibly not personal. It's collective. We recognize ourselves in each other as women. And then even a step beyond that, there's the opportunity, and only we can do it. I know this. I really know this to be true. Only we who are now in women's bodies have the power to end the war between men and women. It is us. It is only us. And either it's what we want or we don't. But I know that it's what I want. And so I'm willing to take radical responsibility for life as it arises around me. And I would invite you to do the same. Thank you.
I love how when humans are gathered, and particularly humans in female bodies, there's this spirit that emerges, this collective spirit, and it will tap one of us to speak on behalf of the others. And I feel that that's what happened, Rianne, with your share. The inspiration that came through, I think you're speaking from most, if not many, or all of us. So thank you. And it feels that now that in this era, there's a call for a new type of activism, if you will. And that activism is a pleasure activism. And I don't know if many of you have heard of the book that recently was released called Pleasure Activism. So I feel that may need to be required reading for all of us, along with Shakti's book, Sexual Awakening for Women. But pleasure activism. And it really begs the question, what if our purpose was pleasure, and that we can make change and inspire change through pleasure, not through pushing, or not through suffering, or not through denying ourselves anything. So it's worth contemplating. So purpose. Pleasure is purpose, and purpose is pleasure. Now let's shift to our third pillar, and that is being. Being and beingness, and what does it mean to be? Rianne talked about the ground of being. And would you like to say a little more about what that is exactly, Rianne?
So the way that I experience it in my body, it's actually a very bodily thing. So that my body, the flesh and blood of my body, is the ground of my being, and it's my portal into that ancient space where the ancients that roamed the earth, that were still not individuals in their evolution, that were one with life, not separate from life. And of course, we can't enter the ground of being from that place because we've evolved. The last 5,000 years have been about becoming individuals, becoming separate somebodies, really realizing our will to power in the third chakra and creating from that place. But our bodies are the gateways, the keys. It's like they are the Garden of Eden for me. My body is the Garden of Eden. And it's the promise that when I drop in and through and down my body, I drop into a place where we're all deeply connected through sensation. It's like through the nervous system. We become the one nervous system of the earth. Our nervous system is no longer separate from the nervous system of the body of the earth. And that's my experience. I'm not sure if I'm languaging it as clearly as I perhaps could. And I think for most of us, our bodies are a scary place to live in, to really deeply inhabit. And that is such a big part of the work. It's building the capacity of our nervous systems to be with the chaos of life, the things we would prefer not to be happening, and stay present and available and rooted in the ground of our own being, so that we're responding rather than reacting, contracting, vomiting out, projecting, blaming, shaming, all the things that we all know, manipulating. And as we build that capacity, which for me, the breath is such a big key, breath by breath, moment by moment, we build capacity to stay present with each other while we feel uncomfortable and intolerable feelings. Whilst there's conflict, like what if, I mean, we know this, what if you and I could be in conflict, but we could still stay present to our feeling, all of that intensity, opening to it, turning the breath like a wheel, taking it in and then letting it out, taking it in and letting it out, not sticking, not contracting. I mean, what a gift if we could start relating like that. And we can. I really know that we can do this if we do our individual and collective work.
Absolutely. One of the beautiful things of being human is being that bridge between heaven and earth. And our body is the vehicle that energy, that light, that inspiration moves through and comes down and takes form. And that's the difference between inspiration and information. Inspiration, information. It moves from heaven to earth. And there's a beautiful little saying, it's a little commitment. It is, what does it take to cultivate a simple devotion to being a clear vehicle for the divine to come through? And that's so much of what this opportunity, being in a human life, in a human body, occupying the ground of being, and doing the investigation, like you said, Rianne, the work, the inner work to clear the vehicle and have that be the simple devotion in every moment. Every moment's the teacher, and every moment is the opportunity to let what's not real drop away, and to let the stories, to let the narratives, to let the identifications drop away, and to really arrive at who are we? Who am I as a being? In truth, in essence. Not just who do I think I need to be, or what do I think I need to conform to be acceptable? What has patriarchy told me I need to look like, or what has the mainstream culture told me I need to look like? And just letting all that drop. And having that simple devotion to be here now. And I love that phrase, being a human being, not a human doing. And coming back to the reminder, yes, there's plenty of doing that's happening all the time. What if I go in the other direction and allow myself to be, and the doing will take care of itself? That's sort of a feminine art, if you will, an artful way of living and being that the feminine has access to, is being a human being and not so much a human doing. And there's a cool acronym for the feminine approach to yoga. It's the word ART, A-R-T. A is for allowing, R is for resting, and T is for trusting. And so there's an art to living and being in the feminine: allowing, resting, trusting. And I would not say that these are what culture necessarily promotes as a way of being, but it's a wonderful reminder. And so why don't we take 1 minute or 2 minutes right now to feel the body, because we've been sharing a lot of words and coming from a lot of concepts, which is helpful, and it also can take us out of the body. So we'll take just 1 minute right now, practice what we were able to practice in the meditation, using breath to move the wheel, inhaling, exhaling, allowing, resting, trusting your ground of being. Feeling any and all sensations in your body right now. Witnessing them, letting them be. Taking in any sounds or smells or feelings against your skin. And truly and authentically occupying this present moment. Yeah, embracing the softness and the sweetness of your being. And before we move on, I want to open it up to anyone who would like to share something, any inspiration or insight that's coming forth for you. You can type it in the chat, or you can raise your hand and share with us. We'd love to hear from you before we move on. Anything that's come alive for you, any insight, anything new that you never thought or considered before. And even if you don't want to share publicly, it's good to really allow the newness and the insight to be there for you and to settle in so that you can access it later. Yay. Cool. Well,
just a last thing to say on that, Claire, just coming to me now, is that to really inhabit the ground of our being, we have to be willing to move out of the upper chakras, which has been this development that we've been in, into the transcendent, into empty space, into the nothingness, the oneness of the heart. And they're all so valid, and they're all gateways to awakening. But it feels to me like the invitation right now is to drop down as women. It's our bodies that have the capacity for this, to drop down into the gut, into the belly, into those first three chakras of the red, the orange, and the yellow, and to really confront, to stand in the fire of abandonment, rejection, betrayal, fear, terror, survival, to really go there. And it's only then that we can land and really inhabit our bodies in a way that we become the open channels, that we become the body of love, that I understand a woman to be, the woman's body to be. You know, if we're holding on to our victim and our stories and what's happened in the past, we deny ourselves the opportunity of growing into the fullness of who we are and what we are.
Mm.
Hmm. Yeah. And it's messy. It's very human and it's very messy.
I think the more honest we can be about that, the more ease we're all going to have. Being human comes with its fair share of mess. That's just so. Yeah. Now, as we round the corner to woman, wow. Now, that's a huge pillar. That's a huge topic. And I would really, if anyone is open to sharing, I would really love some shares on your thoughts and feelings about what does it mean to be a woman right here, right now, on the planet at this precise moment in our evolution. So let that settle in. It's a huge question. But yeah, it feels so important to open the floor for that because it's a big undertaking. It's a big thing. What does it mean to be a woman right here, right now, on the planet at this precise moment in our evolution?
We've got Alicia with her hand up.
Wonderful.
Hi, can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Yes.
Oh, okay. This is so, I just found out about this about 15 minutes before you went on, and I am so deeply grateful because as I am listening, I'm learning so much, but also I work with animals. So I've been working a lot over the past 25 years with the deeply embodied understanding from the fierce feminine of the matriarchs of how they do things. It is not an intellectualized process at all. It is a fully, deeply embodied awareness of how the feminine actually really works on this planet. And as I'm listening, it's bringing forth so many things that they have taught me. And I love what you said about having to come from like the upper 4 chakras down into the lower chakras. Because as I have studied with them as a dog trainer, as a horse trainer, as an energy healer, it has been so fascinating. That is the exact thing that they have been teaching me of how to share this in a very grounded way. It's like the fierce feminine doesn't go up in anger. She goes down in fierceness to say, here's the line. Do not cross it. This is so we don't have wars, right? This is so we have healthy boundaries and proper, respectful behavior that is actually in right relationship with the whole. And when we get into fear, we actually go up. We try to get out of our body. So I absolutely loved what you said about having to go downward, because that is what I have been studying. That is what I have been learning from these fully embodied animal masters. When we think about it, it's like we're all mammals, right? Like humans just think we're more evolved than the animals. But to me, it's like that is coming back into, our animal bodies in a way that really is clear. That the animals told me, they said, we never correct out of anger because anger will fracture a being. They said, we only use the fierceness to correct bad behavior. That's it. So the being stays intact, but they have extraordinarily clear boundaries. And just what you said, it always goes downward through the lower 3 chakras, like that place where we're kind of, we've been traumatized out of, if we've, with the Me Too movement and sexual abuse and so much trauma that's coming to light. We don't want to inhabit our body because our body is what feels. Brain doesn't feel, it only thinks. So this is just, I'm so glad and I'm so grateful that you're doing this, and it is so right on every single area that you're speaking with. And I so appreciate it because, not a lot of humans understand this also from an animal perspective. So as I'm learning from them, but hearing the correlation that you're laying out with the humans, all I can just say is thank you, and I'm so deeply grateful.
Wow, thank you. This is such a profound share, and drawing the correlation between the animal world and the human world, and that need for clean fierceness, that clean fierce fire. Yeah, and it feels that it's a lost way of being in the human.
Yes, it's almost
exactly.
Yeah, it's like the ancient understandings. Like if you look at what I learned from them is, if you look at any pack, herd, or pride on the planet, they are all run by the lead female. They are not run by the lead male. So we have talked so much in our world about the alpha male, alpha male, alpha male. It's like, no, he's only there to protect. She's there to actually call direction. She's there to say, hey, we have enough to eat. Hey, that's enough of that. She's the one that births the babies and has them for, those first 2 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. She's already laying down the laws of behavior through the energetic connection. Exactly. She's teaching them at such a young level. So it is so fascinating how it really, in my opinion, it's coming full circle. The most fully embodied leaders of the fierce feminine are the animals. We are still learning as humans, because from what I understand from a Native American history, in the beginning, the Creator spoke with the animals and through the animals to teach the humans. The Creator did not speak directly to the humans. So I feel like this whole full circle and getting us back to nature, it is also getting us back to that ancient wisdom that the animals have held for millions of years about what, authentically embodied feminine, authentically embodied masculine, the combination, and also authentic leadership. I feel like we keep getting drawn back to that primal space. And as you mentioned, the first lower 3 chakras, that's our animal body. That's not our intellectual body. So this is so wonderful, and thank you so much.
Wow, you're welcome, and thank you. And then truly, as we connect to nature, or reconnect to nature, as the case may be, it connects us and reconnects us to our own nature.
Yes.
That primordial aspect of ourself that's been covered over. It's been clouded over by a pollution of concepts and an oppressive overlay of ideas and misinformation, misdirected energy. And so now we're all striving in the ways we are to come back into balance. And for me, that's what being woman at this time on this planet is, coming into balance. It's not becoming man-hating in any way. It's very much about embracing the feminine aspect, the masculine aspect in myself, and activating all the chakras, staying vital and present in the moment when activations are happening, when triggers are there, when anger is there, and being in touch with the sweetness, even alongside the fierceness of the human animal experience. And so this is a lot of what we wanted to point to today in this call. It's a very unique time on the planet, very complicated, very complex. And it's important for all of us to be together in this, learning from each other, staying connected. Because when we stay connected, it's like a sailing ship. When the connections of the wires and the sails are taut, then the ship can move forward. But if we abandon ship, then we're all drowning. And we're eager to make the call for connection and continuing to sail forward, to evolve forward together in a unified circle of connection. And so, yeah, is there any more you want to say about any of that, Rianne, before we do a polarity square? Feels good? Okay. So if you have paper and pen near you, we've got another exercise to take you through. That was one of my favorite and most precious things I ever learned from Shakti in my time with her. And certainly I use it with clients. I use it myself. I even use it with friends and family. This is called a polarity square. And if you grab your piece of paper, and I'll tell you in one moment what to do with that piece of paper, but first let me briefly describe what a polarity is. So in the human realm, we're living in duality, where we're constantly swinging back and forth between poles. We have our awareness of dualness. So there's hot and cold, there's night and day, there's sad and happy, if you will, there's masculine and feminine. There's open and closed. On and on and on these polarities go, and the movement between those polarities is what creates creation, shall we say. But there are times when we get stuck in a polarity and we're preferring one thing and rejecting something else. And this was an important tenet of Shakti's teachings, particularly in her modality called totality therapy, that we are comprised of the allness of everything, of the everything of the all. And so anytime that I'm choosing or preferring one thing and then pushing another thing away, that's me preferring one component of myself and then rejecting something else. So it takes me out of my totality. It takes me out of my totality, which creates imbalance. Because ideally I'm at choice and I can choose this or that, but it's not about preferring this and rejecting that, full stop. And so a polarity square is an example of how to get back into balance. So if you have a piece of paper handy, here's what you're going to create. It's sort of a tic-tac-toe square. So you do a line down the center and a line across the middle. And then in the upper left corner, you would write desire and then make a line. And I'll tell you what to put on that line in a moment. Across from that, you put fear and then a line. And then another desire, line, fear, line. So that's the basic structure of a polarity square. And if you have paper nearby to do this, it's very helpful. Very, very helpful. And so the polarity that we're going to look at is looking at the back and forth between desiring and fearing. And so if you have your square ready, up here, you would put desire to be a powerful, sexually awake woman. And you can do this later on. I just want to walk you through it so you know how to do it. And then across from that is the polarity of fear, to be fear of being a powerful, sexually awake woman. And then down here, you have desire to be an impotent, sexually asleep woman. So that would be the opposite. And wherever there's a desire, there's also a hidden fear. So that would be fear of being an impotent, sexually asleep woman. So desire to be a powerful, sexually awake woman, and fear to be a powerful, sexually awake woman. Desire to be an impotent, sexually asleep woman, and fear to be an impotent, sexually asleep woman. And so how this works next is you would take time, which we probably won't start that right now, but I wanted to give you the overview. And under each of these categories, you write all the reasons that you desire being a powerful, sexually awake woman. And go as deep as you can and fill the square in as fully as you can. even turning it over to the backside, filling additional pages if necessary. And then next, you would write all the reasons that you fear being a powerful, sexually awake woman. And you might start to notice that some of the reasons show up under both categories, even though the desire and the fear are opposite things. And then similarly, for desire to be an impotent, sexually asleep woman and fear to be an impotent, sexually asleep woman, you write all the reasons, all the desires for, and all the fears of that. And you start to notice that you have some contradictory reasons going on in the polarity. So this is showing up in your energy, in the unconscious, keeping you trapped, keeping you locked in a polarity, not able to feel or unleash your full vitality, and certainly not able to step into being a powerful, sexually awake woman because there's too many contradictory thoughts and feelings and fears and desires. So this is a polarity square, and it's an exercise that we use often in the work at the Shakti Shiva Academy. And we wanted to introduce this to you so you have an understanding of how the exercise works. And then you are able to look at what's happening inside of your unconscious and your subconscious. So we won't go any deeper with this right now. So we have a little less than 10 minutes left, but we wanted to at least introduce to you that exercise and its potency. And so, yeah, we'll start to bring our time together. Yes, it's impotent, sexually asleep woman, or a powerful, sexually awake woman. And that's in response to the chat just there. Yeah, we've got a little time for any shares. If anyone would like to share anything or ask any questions. And then we want to take a tiny bit of time to introduce, if you got something valuable out of today, if you enjoyed our conversation today, Rianne, Tiffany, and I are launching and leading a 9-month, very intensive, very beautiful journey into sexual awakening for women. And so we wanted to share a little bit about that with you in a moment. But does anyone have anything you'd like to share or anything that came up for you today? And also Tiffany put a link to the workbook in the chat to make sure you can access that later. Well, Rianne, anything you would like to add in as we come to a close?
I was just really feeling into, what a journey it is. And of course, we're all honored in our own ways already, but that this opportunity to join together into unpacking the archetypes of the feminine that we've inherited through patriarchy, this virgin hall split, that we can only be one or the other. Start really claiming our sexuality and living it in an embodied way, which really means undoing and looking deeply into the shadows of these archetypes. And then when we do our work there, we have the opportunity to live into the dream. And one of the big ones is the women's union. And so I think it's important for us as women to recognize that we are the ones who keep the status quo in place. We are the ones right now who are responsible for the world exactly as it is, and that the system that we've been born into, and our mothers and our mothers' mothers, and of course our fathers, but sticking with what it means to be in a woman's body, we are actually the ones who have the power to say it's enough and to change this. And that's the piece that really is exciting for me. It's the part, it's the invitation to really own that we are the ones that are creating the world, that we are the ones that have the power. And I think it's very powerful when we come together as women in our tenderness and our vulnerability, and we really, really move through all the structures that have kept us separate, that have kept us competing with each other, that have kept us comparing ourselves with each other, competing for resources, living in a scarcity mentality, living as if there is not abundance, as if there's not enough for all of us, as if we have to fight for what we need, and we won't get our needs met if we don't fight for them. I mean, I could go on and on, but I think you get the feeling of that, and that this journey together is so tender and so vulnerable, and together, it's only together that we can create enough safety for ourselves and for each other, to meet the needs which were expressed in this incredible sharing in the chat. I'm really looking forward to reading through that more thoroughly after the call. But really answering that call, that before we can do this, we do need a certain level of safety, a certain level of trust, a certain level of determination. And that's really the invitation today to all of the women on the call, is to feel deeply into what it would mean to soften into your own being as a feminine being who knows the masculine, but lives by the feminine and becomes the whole world's channel.
Yeah. And there aren't many spaces for us to explore that together. And Shakti really made that space possible when she was a teacher for us. And now we're committed, Rianne, Tiffany, and myself are committed to continuing not just her legacy, but the importance of this work, the importance of these inquiries, and the importance of this development and evolution of the feminine on the planet at this time. And so we will be following up with an email that has description of the beautiful course that we'll be leading beginning August 1st for 9 months. Beautiful, deep, deep journey into the feminine. And we would love to extend a sincere invitation to everyone on this call, everyone watching this call from the recording, to join, to consider joining, and to join us for that 9 months, because it's beautiful work, it's timely work, it is effective work. Certainly the three of us in our journeys are demonstrations of the power of sexual awakening for women from three very different vantage points and life paths. And it's an honor, a deep honor, to get to bring this work forward in the world. And Rianne, is there anything you'd like to say about the course?
No, it feels to me like we all have access to the sales page, and there's a follow-up video, and so that the real information you can all access at your leisure. And so the invitation is really to, if any questions come up for you, any specific information that's not available, that you feel is missing, questions that arise for you that would enable you to determine whether this course is for you, whether this work is for you at this time, then really please email us. And Tiffany will, in the email and perhaps into the chat box, just put the email address to use, and then we can have an ongoing conversation around the particulars and the details of the course, this is not the forum to really deeply go into that now. Tiffany, was there something that you'd like to add there?
No, I think that's it. It feels, I mean, I'm just posting now in the chat box. I have put the link there for those who would like to continue to look at it, to look at the course. I also feel it doesn't feel honoring of the depth that we've dropped in on this call to go into a whole heady discussion about it. So for sure, we'll be sending out a recording of this call for those who weren't able to follow on fully, or even want to listen again and drop in again or re-engage the meditation. So you'll be able to do that again and again. And yes, so a recording will be sent out tomorrow. If you don't receive it for some reason in your email, you're welcome to pop me an email or connect with me on Facebook, so I can just make sure that you don't lose access in any way, and any other information will be coming through on that. So let's definitely stay in touch. It's been amazing. Thank you so much, Rianne. Thank you so much, Claire. I thoroughly enjoyed myself, and it definitely reminds me of us all being women, how we're all so different. And I've been sitting here going, gosh, as much as I can relate to all of the things, I know our skills are so very not the same, but yet we're all here being women in this world and for bringing our gifts in our unique ways. And it really takes this journey of loving ourselves, being ourselves, embracing ourselves in order to do this. So yeah, again, thank you everyone for joining the call. Thank you for all of your sharings and the engagement and the participation. I'm deeply, deeply touched, deeply, deeply honored. And it would be lovely to continue with many of you, in the 9 months journey.